Hey, folks, this is Rabble Rousing Rich Bergeron.
Ladies and gentlemen, the tornado Tony Finnegan.
Yeah. And Psychic Tom Patrick with his crystal ball on fire.
Oh, man, yeah. Well, I could have used a little crystal ball last week on making my picks. Did not work out well after the first 3-4 fights there. I pretty much got the easy ones. Euros Medic was probably the cheapest guy that won for me and got the stoppage and everything like that. He was an underdog, but I also picked Dusko Todorovic, and he masterfully got through most of the first round, but then got caught with a friggin' vicious elbow. We'll get to that in a minute, the whole rundown of the scores, but then there was some controversy at the end of the night. I put together one of them little upset cards and put everybody that would have been an upset on it, and Ketlin Vieira was up there on it, and she got the upset. It was a decision by split variety. Holly Holm, I fell asleep during this fight, I gotta admit. She did really well during the first round from what I saw, and then I just fell asleep, so I didn't see the rest, but I have seen a lot of back and forth on this main event, opinion-wise. A lot of people say that Holly might have won the fight, but it definitely was not a robbery, as some people have, gone out there and said that she was robbed. But Holly's not a knockout artist, like she's really abandoned a lot of her kicking. She does more grappling and boxing than anything these days, and even the boxing is just, there's not much power there. She doesn't really seem to go for the knockout. She's an older woman too, so she's obviously trying to fight smart. And it seems like one of those cases like we just had with Rose Namajunas. She's just trying to put a technical fight together, and then judges don't want to see that anymore. They want to see you be aggressive, and I guess Caitlin was a little bit more aggressive. Like I said, I didn't see the rest of it, but from the first round, that's what I saw. She was just fighting very smart, trying not to get hit, trying to score, control points rather than striking points, for the most part, from what I saw. So, yeah. People want to see her be able to do what she does best, strike. Kick people in the head. They don't want to see a 5-round fight with her. So hopefully she gets the message and straightens it out next time. Maybe they'll have a rematch. But that was a surprise to me when I woke up the next day and checked the results. Because I saw Ketlin in her last fight. She was a little bit impressive, but she didn't seem to be on that level of Holly Holm already. But here we are. Did you see that fight, Tom?
No.
So how did you score it in your psychic brain?
Well, the main fight I wanted was the co-main event.
Oh yeah.
And and I think that one.
I think that was more controversial than the main event.
Very close.
Because I had Ponzinibbio.
Yeah.
I needed him to win to get any points to win on any of my cards, and I looked at the matchup, and it was like one of those ones where I looked at the pros and cons of both fighters, and it's at welterweight, so it's kind of middle of the pack as far as weights go. You're not always going to expect a knockout at that weight. But I thought Ponzinibbio had everything it would take to win that fight. And I think he did win that fight, honestly. I think he worked harder.
I mean, it was one of those ones for me. I'm just glad I wasn't a judge. I mean, you could, let's just say it was close.
Yeah. I mean, Pereira did land a lot of leg kicks, and he had a lot of activity. But as far as the damaging shots and the aggression and all of that, ring generalship, whatever you want to call it, I thought Santiago edged it out. But Pereira got the win, and that was that. That was the derailing of all my chances right there. But the big backer that I failed to account for Miracle was Dusko. Dusko was a cheap fighter. I think he was like $8 or $9 on the FanDuel. Got knocked out by the elbow with just 12 seconds. No, yeah, 12 seconds left in the round. First round. But he was really handling him. He was doing a lot of good grappling and striking, and Chidi just couldn't get any range to do what he needed to do, so he used a nice little short elbow, and down went Todorovic. So it was gone there. But either way, I did not follow my own advice with getting the right female fight. Like I said, it's almost always going to come down to one of the female fights on the card if there is one, especially if there's 3 or 4. In this one, we had 3. And this is not the one, but Tabitha Ricci got a win over Pollyanna Viana by unanimous decision. That was not much of a surprise there. Jun Young Park split decision to Eric Anders. That's one of the ones that I was smart enough not to pick. I kind of thought that was going to go to a decision. Joseph Holmes, I did pick. I got that one right. That was one of my 3 stoppage wins I got right. And the one before that was also. That was a submission in the first round over Alan Amadovsky. Yeah, I mean, both of these guys were heavy on the stoppages at middleweight, so I kind of hedged my bets on this one and put one guy on one card and Holmes on 2 or 3, because I thought he was going to hedge it. But I thought if there was a chance that Amadovsky won, he was going to win by stoppage, so you might as well shove him on a card. And then we had the big, expensive heavyweight, Jailton Almeida. He beat Parker Porter, who's actually from the New England area, so I should have been rooting for him, but Almeida's just a beast. He just plows through people, and there's no exception here. Rear naked choke submission with about 25 seconds left in the fight, in the first round, I should say. That was a rear naked choke submission, all done for Parker Porter. And then my buddy, Yaros Medik, he was my 3rd big time pick. I picked 3 fights in a row correctly. That was a TKO this time. 3 minutes and 5 seconds into the second round, so I had a pretty good start. I was winning money early until the late fights, but yeah, that was tough to pick. I also had Chase Hooper. I was smart enough to pick Chase Hooper on one of my good lineups too, but I didn't have him with all the other ones. He also got a TKO, and it was 3 minutes into the third round over Felipe Diaz-Calares. And then the female fight I was talking about, Sam Hughes beating Elise Reed by TKO, elbows and punches. That was 3 minutes and 52 seconds into round 3. And she was pretty cheap, actually. I think she was like kind of like a journeyman type fighter with like 3 or 4 losses, something like that. And Elise Reed was like 5-1 going in. So their nickname though was Best, and you see a nickname like that, and you're like, oh geez, name like that, she ought to knock this girl out, And I always have these thoughts like before I make my picks, and I pass over these people, and I'm always thinking to myself, that's gonna come back to me, I bet. This girl's nickname is Sam Page. Sam Hughes, Sam Page. So I should have got the hint. She got a TKO, elbows and punches. So yeah, if I had just cut a line off at fight number 7, and picked Sam Hughes, Chase Hooper, Yaros Medik, Jailton Almeida, and Joseph Holmes, you'd be talking to a guy with thousands of dollars right now from a big win. But no, I had to look at the whole fight card. Some of the late fights were just easy fights to go to decision. So we had basically 4 of the 5 final fights of the night went to decision. Just the Chidi Jakulani knockout. That was it. And we're not going to spend a lot of time on mixed martial arts this week. Sadly for the sport, we have like a hiatus going on. Like none of the leagues are having anything going on until June 4th. We have a Memorial Day weekend hiatus for the big leagues of MMA. But when it does come back, we're not going to go through the whole card, but UFC Fight Night 207 will be happening June 4th, and that's a heavyweight matchup between Alexander Volkov and Jairzinho Rozenstruik, who is 12-3. Volkov is 34-10. Well, a lot of fights. We had some fights to talk about last weekend. We've got some boxing news. Unfortunately, we had a sad passing in the sport. Gary Russell Sr. just died in his 67, I believe. So,
Did they say what it was? I mean, I don't know if it was a heart attack, a stroke.
He's had some strokes. He's had complications from diabetes, and mentions in the article here about his death that he had his foot amputated late last year. But he was.
Shit! Yeah, I didn't know that.
I do remember them talking about him being in a wheelchair in the crowd during one of the televised fights that featured a couple of his sons. It seems like there's always at least two of his sons on the card at one time. And I specifically remember.
Now you say that, I do remember hearing that.
And it was when one of them was when Gary Antoine Russell was undefeated 15-0 with 15 knockouts, stopped Ukrainian contender Viktor Postol 31-4 and 12 KOs late in the 10th round of their February 26th fight at the Cosmopolitan. And then a month earlier, Gary Russell Jr. lost that debatable 12-round majority decision to Mark Magsayo, who was 24-0 at the time, in Atlantic City. So yeah, incredible stuff. And I did not realize that Gary Russell Sr. had two sons who died before he did. One of them was murdered in 2004 in D.C., Devon Drayton. Was also a promising boxer, amateur. He was just 17 years old, murdered in D.C. Another son of Russell, Gary Busa Russell, was 25 when he died of a heart attack. Who dies of a heart attack?
Oh my God!
25. It's crazy. Wild. But rest in peace, Gary Russell Sr. Great story of a guy who recognized the need to keep his kids off the street. This one choosing good control. And put them into a good direction by getting them to the rec center that they started at, and keeping up with it. And right up until he had a couple strokes, I guess, and he had the complications from diabetes that got to him in the end. But he was like really, working directly with his sons right up to the end. So great story of a guy that's just always cared deeply for the sport and for his children. He will be missed. And last week we had the big fight was David, not versus Goliath, but versus David. And David won, just like I said, so pay up, guys.
Yeah, you called that one right.
Now, Lemieux went down. Benavidez was the hero of the weekend. Great knockout. And a lot of talk now about whether Canelo will go up against a guy like that.
Yeah. So. Well, you know what? Canelo just re-signed to fight Triple G in September, and then he's looking to possibly Bivol again. But, you can't take this Benavidez. Unfortunately, he's not getting a lot of the publicity that he should.
Yeah.
He's 25 years old. He's undefeated. He's 23 knockouts. And like I said, he is not just winning fights. I mean, he's winning fights impressively. I mean, David Lemieux is a fighter. Had notoriously a suspect chin, so his fights are always exciting because somebody usually goes out. And, in this case, David Lemieux went out. I only got to see clips of it because, like I said, after the long day that I had in the heat, I did not survive to stay up that late. But 3 rounds, blew a contender, a legitimate world title challenger out of the water.
Yeah, it was one of those. It was like a clinical destruction. I mean, it was. Yeah, I was surprised that Limo got out of the first round. It was competitive for about the first 2 minutes. That's it.
Like Lemieux, with his known punching power, would have had to land something early to basically get Benavidez' respect. To maybe say like, hey man, I got to be a little careful in this fight because this guy can, take me out just as fast as I can take him out. Didn't work that way, and Benavidez, really just destroyed him.
Yeah, I mean, he got hurt. I think it was about 2 minutes into the first round, and he was in bad shape at the end of round 1. Got to give him a lot of credit for his guts. I mean, he did not want to quit. I mean, that was a true warrior.
When I was, my dad watched it. Like I said, I had already fallen asleep by that point. Had a real long day in the heat. My dad said, my dad was like, he's never been like a big Lemieux fan. He respected him. Enjoyed watching him play, but he was never like a fan. He goes, you know what? I like the guy now. He goes, he lost that fight, but he goes, he showed me a lot in defeat.
Yeah, and he didn't make any excuses. So, yeah, right now maybe Canelo was looking at that one and saying, well, let's look elsewhere.
It's funny. It's like, and sometimes, and like I said, sometimes you're the smart one of the group because you don't do like social media like Rich and I do, and maybe you are immune from a lot of the stupidity that you see on like these public forums. And I'm looking at one the other day, and you get certain people, they have to make everything over race. And I know people personally that love to do that. Like, and I'll just bring one up because he's one of the most famous fighters in history. A lot of people would discredit a guy like Rocky Marciano because of his skin color. It doesn't say you have to like the guy, but you should respect what he did. And like I remember talking to one guy, and he just, hated Rocky, hated him, because and then when you talk to the guy, it's like you hate him because of his color. You don't hate him because of what he did. You'll nitpick everything that the man did. And in your eyes, Rocky would have lost to Leon Spinks. Well,
I would just answer that, Tony, by saying, who did Rocky duck?
Exactly.
And there's crickets. Who did he duck?
Yeah. Well, he fought in the weak generation. That's not his fault.
No. Well, yeah, we hear that story all the time, too.
Well, he retired to avoid fighting Sonny Liston. Sonny Liston wasn't even a ranked contender when he retired.
Right.
Sonny Liston came down from about 5 years later.
Someone that would make, Liston was around then, but he wasn't the name guy till the probably late 50s, early 60s. And that's 5-6 years after Rocky retired. I mean, anyone that would say something that idiotic, I just have to say, this discussion's over with. You're not at my level, and go fuck yourself.
And somebody made a statement the other week going into the Canelo-Bivol fight. Canelo was the favorite, and we all expected him to win. We knew Bivol was going to be tough because of his, tight defense, strength, and good jab. But we figured the fight Canelo would win. And I remember, and I think it was even Clarissa Shields might even said it on the broadcast, was like, I think Canelo's going to win. The only 2 guys right now that I think would beat him would be Demetrius Andrade and whichever Charlo. Do you have to throw a race thing there? Andrade, because of his style, would give issues. I don't think Charlo would. I think Charlo would get systematically destroyed. And then somebody had to, after the Benavidez fight, well, he wouldn't be able to do that to Charlo. And another guy jumped in, and they went to make it racial, and the other guy jumped in and said, you know what? You're right. He wouldn't do that to Charlo. He'd do worse to Charlo. Charlo wouldn't even land in the same ring with him.
Tony, I got a little nugget of knowledge for you. Rain Man test too, I guess you could call it. You're familiar with a guy named Jean Pascal from Canada, by way of Port-au-Prince.
Yeah. In fact, I'll see your Rain Man and I'll up you a Rain Man. Jean Pascal.
So he
wasn't he the one where Bernard Hopkins did the push-ups in the center of the ring between rounds against him?
Yes, and can you tell me what distinction Bernard Hopkins has in the career of Jean Pascal? That's our trivia question of the week for all the listeners out there.
See, they had twice, so he would have. Hopkins had a few rematches in his career, so that's not it. He's the guy that has two on Bernard Hopkins in their first fight.
Let's make it easy for you. I'm going to just lay out the sentence I need you to complete. He is the only fighter, Bernard Hopkins is the only fighter who beat Jean Pascal, who was not what at the time?
Who was not Canadian?
No. No, undefeated. Undefeated. Every single fighter other than Bernard Hopkins who has beaten Jean Pascal in his 6 losses
was white? I don't know.
Was undefeated. I just noticed.
Oh, really?
Looking at his record, he has not lost to any other.
I was saying Canadian white.
He has not lost to anybody. Dimitri Bivol was his last loss, undefeated at 14-0. Elider Alvarez before that, 22-0. Sergey Kovalev before that, 28-0. He had another Sergey Kovalev fight. He was 26-0 at the time. That was the TKO loss. And then Bernard was 51-5-2 when they fought back in 2011, and he lost by unanimous decision. It was a draw before that.
I remember what. That's a good fight.
And the first fighter he lost to was the undefeated Carl Froch at 23-0. Froch, how do you pronounce that again? I don't know. I think he was called Froch.
Oh, Froch.
Froch, alright. I think I used to always call him Froch, and then I finally found out it was Froch. That's what it is. That was a close one, too. It was 118 to 110. Well, not that close on that card, but it was close on one card. 112 to 116. 111 to 117 on the other one. But anyway, yeah. The reason I mention Jean Pascal is because he just beat another undefeated fighter, because it's just as impressive as the fact that he has only lost to Bernard Hopkins and undefeated fighters. He has beaten quite a bit of undefeated fighters himself, and he just beat one in Fanlong Meng, who was 17-0 going in last Friday. He beat him by decision. 115 to 112, 114 to 113, and 116 to 111, and put Meng down in round 9 of 12. And he has put quite a streak together just since 2015. 7/25, 2015. He has beat, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 undefeated fighters, including Marcus Brown, Ahmed Elbiali, and Unieski Gonzalez. And he is also the first person to give somebody else who we know his former trainer really well, somebody else, his first loss back in the day, 2010. Chad Dawson was about to be 30-0.
And we do know his trainer very well.
Yeah, and he got stopped in the 11th round by Jean Pascal.
Yeah.
Unreal. And
I remember that.
Chad was always one of my favorite light heavyweight fighters, just because of his fabulous jab that Scully taught him how to use pretty well, I thought. Anyway, so that's the Jean Pascal show. I just thought that was pretty impressive that he has both beaten so many undefeated fighters and has pretty much, except for Bernard, who is a pretty nice exception to have in this category.
Well,
He's only
the
lost to undefeated
one fight
fighters.
that I did get to see, with one undercard, was Jermaine Ortiz beating Jamal Herring, and I like Jamal Herring. It's such a class act, but you could see at 36 years old that he had definitely lost the step. He fought valiantly, he went the distance, but you could tell that he just didn't have it. He couldn't pull the trigger when he needed to, and Ortiz fought a very good fight.
Yep.
And then don't forget we have one of our former guests fighting Saturday night as well, Gilberto Ramirez.
Yes, we do. Or we did, right? We won.
Yeah, he won via stoppage over Dominic Botel. Once again, another fight I did not get to see.
And he's been calling out Bivol since then, I believe, right?
Ramirez.
Yeah, he wants
What's
Bivol.
that?
Ramirez, I think he wants Bivol next, Gilberto.
I mean, right now, that's a good play. Ramirez is a good fighter. And you figure he's on a 5-fight knockout streak. He's 44. He's got 30 knockouts. He's on a 5-fight knockout streak. And there's some good fighters in that list, like some of them Barrera.
Right.
And this is one of the ones we had talked to him about was he stopped Barrera last year with all body shots. Then he had a 10th round stoppage over Yuneski Gonzalez, and then leading up into this fight where he stopped Dominic Botel in 4 rounds. So, you got a fighter here that's potentially going to make some noise again.
Yeah, and Kudos really got that weight cut stuff down. He was 204 when he got in the ring last month. That's incredible. Even in MMA, I've heard of 20 pounds, but I never heard of that's almost 30.
Yeah.
Yeah. John, one of the ones that I was talking to my friend about over this past weekend. We were talking about different fights that he went to, and we were talking about last week being the anniversary of the first Gotti Ward fight, and we were talking like the first fight he ever went to. I took him and another buddy of mine. We all went down to when Arturo Gotti was at the tail end of his career, and he fought. What was the boy's name? The big guy from Argentina, Carlos Baldomir, and Baldomir, for fighting at 147, was cutting down from like 185. You got in the ring. Like I remember when Gotti fought Joey Gamache, and Gotti looked so much bigger than Gamache, and he had ballooned back up to like 160 by the time of the fight. Baldomir made Gotti look like 4 or 5 weight classes smaller, and we always go into that fight because Baldomir was a strong guy, a physical guy. He was a guy that he did nothing spectacular, but he was heavy-handed and he was strong. He was a guy that's like, if he was just walking forward towards you, you could feel his strength. He's a guy that's like, if you got in a clinch, you felt like you were in with a guy that was like a weightlifter. He's like a strong guy. And I remember fighting and sparring with guys like that. You fell in there, even when they would just throw a jab at you and you were catching it, you could say like, man, this guy's really strong. You could just feel his strength. And Gotti made the mistake. He had such a good first round that he tried to stand there and start slugging with him. And we're like, no, you're outboxing this guy. Get out on your way. And then he was standing right in front of him. And then next thing you know, Baldomir just started grinding him down. Even if he was just touching him on the arms, touching him on the shoulders, getting him in clinches. We're like, and every time he would land a right hand over Gotti's jab, it's like you could see it was like knocking him backwards. And it just went. So that's the first thing you reminded me of when you said that about that weight cut.
Yeah.
Why do you think he's just not got the publicity? With the record he's got, I was just reading an article about that. What is it, 44-0 now? and he's knocking on the
the.
right. And is it just? You think it's just been bad management? I mean,
It's got to be, Tom. It has to be, because you're looking at. I mean, we've seen him fight a few times. I saw him fight with Jesse Hart, which were good, close competitors. I saw him fight with Tommy Carpenter. This is a good fighter, and we had him on the air. He's a very personable guy.
He told us people were afraid of him, didn't he?
Likable guy.
Wasn't that the?
What did he say?
Didn't he tell us people were afraid of him?
Well, I mean, but any fighter.
okay. Well, yeah. I mean, no pro fighter is going to be afraid when the money's right.
Yeah.
I don't care who it is.
Well, he's been backed by Golden Boy.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he still has a relationship with Golden Boy. I know he's like, a self-managed fighter other than that, but I know he's done business with
when you say somebody's like afraid, like it can't be like a fighter is like, oh my God, I'm afraid of this guy. Oh my God, I don't want to fight this guy. Any fighter worth his salt would be like, Mike Tyson, when do we get in the ring? Let's go. And especially when the dollar signs are, it's the managers and the promoters. So it's like, you have a good fighter. Perfect example. You get a guy like Boots Ennis right now. Now, Boots Ennis is on a meteoric rise to the top, but now he becomes a mandatory for Errol Spence. Errol Spence says, yeah, I'll fight this kid. Yeah, that'll be a good fight. Errol Spence's manager might turn around and say, you know what? We can probably get more money. That's what it comes down to. More money to fight Terrence Crawford. Or say you get like an aging fighter at like a weight class. I'm going to use him as a perfect example. Just for argument's sake, say a guy like Floyd Mayweather or Manny Pacquiao. Because you know what? I want to come out of retirement. I want to fight Errol Spence. And Boots Ennis wants to fight Errol Spence. Well, we know the better fight would be Boots Ennis and Errol Spence. We know what fight's going to get made. Right? Mayweather or Pacquiao. Why? Dollar signs. Sure. Here's an example. I'm going to go back in the day, about 30 years ago. Very good junior middleweight champion. Terrible Terry Norris. Terrible Terry Norris, how to, and he's champ of the world. They had some worthy contenders at welterweight at the time. Some really good fighters. Junior middleweight. Really good fighters. It's a guy that hadn't been in the ring in 2 years almost. Sugar Ray Leonard. Why?
Yeah.
Money.
Yep.
Yeah, that was an ugly fight.
Oh, it was a terrible fight. It was horrible.
Well,
Only were emotions when Leonard came back 5 years later to fight Camacho. That was even worse. But, right, it comes down to money. So you see a guy like, you're managing a light heavyweight. You got Beeble, or you got Turbiev. These big-name fighters, they're closing in on a mega fight deal, or they're waiting for that Canelo cash cow to come in. And then you see, Gilberto Ramirez, and you're like, yeah, we can beat him. But he's a risk. He's a high risk, low reward.
Yeah.
He's a risky fighter. He's 44. No, he's Southboy. He's talented. We think. But do we really want to put, that, chance, that Canelo, ticket up for grabs, and maybe fight, and then be taken out of that, or break a hand, or get cut, and lose a chance at that Canelo cash cow? So,
speaking of breaking a hand, it's funny while you were just saying that, the guy is shaking his hand in the NBA game, right? He got fouled. He threw the basketball at him while he was shaking
I think, and especially with me on this, what we've seen over the last few decades has been boxing has become a business.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sure has.
It has, and you know how I compared it the other week? I was talking to somebody about politics. I don't know why. I think I was talking to my dad, so I knew I wasn't going to argue. But politics right now is what? Argument. If you're on this side, you have to argue.
You guys want to talk gun control?
You can't agree on anything. You have to argue. You have to argue. Gun control, birth control, abortions, immigration, vaccines. argue on everything, right? And they are pulling you in such further and further and further directions. Politicians are smart, and here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take a very staunch stance one way. And Rich, I think you and I are both on the same side, but just say for argument's sake, we're on opposite sides. Now I'm going to take a staunch stand one way, and you're going to take a staunch stand the other way. And we're going to ask for donations, and we're going to bicker at each other or whatever, and the people that follow me are going to bicker with the people that follow you, and they're going to hate each other. They are going to hate each other. And you know what you and I are going to do at the end of the day? We're going to go out and have a drink. We're going to be like, yeah, suckers.
Right.
Politicians are the ultimate boxing promoters. Politicians are Don King, Bob Arum, Dana White, all rolled into one. And basically what they do is they get everybody else to fight,
Yep.
and they make the money.
Yeah, just like lawyers. Lawyers, same way.
Exactly.
Say that.
Most politicians are lawyers.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's kind of funny because I stumbled across, while I was doing some research for stuff, I stumbled across an old email from my dad. I was telling him about the Zions case while I was out in Vegas, and he was back here in New Hampshire. And he emailed me something back about, this whole country is run by crooked lawyers. You won't win, So he was always very short in his emails and stuff like that. But it was just kind of like, wow, yeah, that was him. He's always been telling me that, I wonder where I get it from sometimes, and I read stuff like that. You would always say that, and I realized that at a very early age, that it seemed like almost every politician was a lawyer beforehand.
Yeah.
And
I'll tell you, it was funny, and I remember this. I'm going back 10 years now. It was getting ready for the 2012 presidential election, which was between Obama and Mitt Romney. And I remember they were doing the Republican National Convention. We were getting ready to roll over my friend's house, getting ready for his bachelor party. We were going to be leaving in a couple days, so all of our shirts came, and we were just going over our plan. And my one friend is he's always watching these things, I don't know why. And he was watching the Republican National Convention, and they had Clint Eastwood on because, he's very conservative. And one of the things Clint said was, he goes, I'm backing the guy that has more of a background in business. Mitt Romney is a businessman, where businessmen, what they want to do is basically buy and sell, create, get things, operating, get the economy moving. Lawyers want to argue. He goes, I'll always take a businessman over a lawyer, because all lawyers want to do is argue.
yeah. Well, you want to really get people going. Get them arguing about this Texas shooter thing, because you've got a lot of issues in one case. You've got immigration. Supposedly he was an immigrant. That's not being reported, but the Border Patrol had a case against him already when this happened. And you got transgender issues. Did you hear about that yet?
Yep.
With the shooter? There's pictures of him going around in drag, basically. And then you got gun control, school safety. Oh man, so many. You got the opposite problem caused by this whole defund the police. They don't want to engage. That's the big story of the day.
Yeah.
I don't want to go one way or the other, because I really do support the police at the end of the day, 9 times out of 10, unless they really do something wrong. But, this whole defund the police thing has made the police so reluctant to engage in situations like this.
Yeah.
Everything has to be dotting the I's and crossing the T's, and, a couple of these guys got shot at when they did show up for the call, the local guys. And the news media just will not stop hammering them on why they waited an hour to go in. But I think the defund police movement is partially responsible for that attitude. And I don't think you should go immediately to, oh, the cops were scared and cowards. No, they got shot at. A couple of them. They were overmatched in this case, unfortunately. It was a very small local police department, so I mean, some people just mouth off without having any understanding of the process. But so you got immigration, transgender
Remember
issues,
that
gun
phrase.
control, and defund the
Remember
police.
that phrase, Rich. You got to know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And we don't know yet.
Yeah. So, I mean, there was a couple shootings ago, I think, or maybe 3 or 4, who knows what the count is now. There was a mention of arming teachers. Which I think is a great idea now. I mean, if you can't get gun control passed, I mean, you can't arm a kid. You're not going to have hall monitors armed to the teeth in elementary school. It's just not happening. So you got to have some armed teachers, Recruit from the military, maybe. Maybe the best therapy of all for some of these ex-military people with PTSD is to be dealing with kids all day. If they had a constructive career in the military, they got military experience, they could teach something, throw them in a school. Would not be bad for America at all. But anyway, that's my soapbox minute. It's sad. It's sad, though. I mean, I've been listening to it all day. These things should not be happening. And every time somebody brings up mental health nowadays, they get slammed. I mean, 9 times out of 10, it's mental health and abandonment. That's the big thing that's coming out of this kid's life. He was obviously abandoned. He was with his grandmother and grandfather. His birth parents were nowhere to be found. Still can't find the grandfather, as far as I remember hearing today. And the stories that he's a victim too. They're almost saying, without saying it. It's sad. It's all around. The whole story is sad. But when they start politicizing it right away, and a guy like fucking Beto O'Rourke gets up at the middle of the press conference and starts harassing the people giving it over gun control.
Yeah, I saw that.
I mean, there's some people that will just use any crisis to get ahead. And that's the saddest part of the whole process, where you should be out doing something constructive instead of interrupting the press conference.
One thing, the one comedian that I know that I was talking to a few weeks ago, and he came out last night and he, did a video, and there was a few things he said, and he goes, here's how slimy the politicians are anymore. They will jump on any opportunity to advance their own political agenda, and it's a perfect example. Oh my God, in their eyes, oh this is horrible, and in the back of their minds, this is great. Because this is going to help me advance my agenda. I hate to say that, but it's true.
Exactly.
So this comedian came out and he said that, and he goes, what the way things are now and the way things should be. Now, how unsecure the borders are at the U.S. Mexico, and then plus you have those open sea area down south from Cuba and stuff like that. You're trying to tell me that weapons wouldn't be smuggled across illegally? Absolutely. And now everybody else that's been disarmed is basically now are sitting ducks.
Yep. Unreal. And there's so many conspiracy theories already behind this. Midterms are coming up, so Democrats need an issue, on that side, and on the other side, it's this is being done to put focus on the immigration facts, and we need to keep Donald Trump's policy in place, the stay in Mexico thing, and there's just all kinds of issues that surround this one case. And then you've got people comparing it to the Texas stance on abortion too, blaming it all on Republicans. And, I don't know, it's just so crazy right now. So crazy, political wise. And there's probably going to be a really crazy season for midterms, and then Joe Biden's last couple of years are going to be very difficult with all this inflation, everything else going on. I think by the end he might be the most hated president we've ever had. If it keeps up, if it gets any worse. I don't know. It's sad, but it's funny at the same time because, I mean, of all the people that it could happen to.
Here's another thing that I don't like about politicians. Now, first of all, I think the guy was put in there as a puppet.
Yeah.
And I don't think he has the mental capability to have that role anymore, but they put him up there because they knew he would not be polarizing enough where he would sway too many of the people away from him, where he was just, grandfatherly enough.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah, so we'll vote for him because we don't like the other guy. He's too polarizing. So, but then they put him up there, he's a puppet. See, they're pulling the strings on him. And it's all the progressives behind him pulling these strings badly. I don't think he knows, where he is half the time. I don't think he knows what he's doing half the time. But here's what I don't like about politicians. So you get these politicians that'll love to smile in your face, right? They'll love to smile in your face. So you have a political rally, okay? And so you're at this political rally, and you're all for this, whoever the candidate is, and you're cheering them or whatever, and they're smiling, and they're shaking hands and whatever, and then, just for argument's sake, you're the person that's like anti them. They're smiling at you, and then they come to shake your hand. You're like, you know what, you suck. I'm voting for Donald Trump. That look on their face will turn so badly, and you can see them now. They were smiling at you, shaking your hand. They were going to hug you. Now it's like, get out of here. You're scum. Whatever. What Hillary called them? A bunch of deplorables. Yeah. You're a deplorable. You're a scumbag. Well, a minute ago you were shaking my hand and smiling at me.
Wow, makes it interesting that
I disagree with you.
That Elon Musk came out and said that the Democrats are the party of division and hate. And it really is turning out to be that's the case. I used to be Democratic leaning, like when I was very young, and I wanted to be a writer and all that stuff. I was very liberal minded, and my dad used to make fun of me, and so I was like stubbornly liberal for a little while. And now I just look at all the corruption, and it's just like so much of it is tied to the Democratic Party. I know the Republican Party is corrupt too, but I mean, just their whole platform makes more sense to me. Their whole attitude makes more sense, and the big flaw that you can jump up and down about is that they had a guy who was way too egotistical in power for a few years. But I mean, you compare it to this guy, and anything is better. Anything. But if they could rally around a little bit better of a leader, they'd be fine. They'd be fine.
On your far left side, like when you were like more moderate, like I said, my family all grew up on the Democratic side, and they were, when it was like moderate, because most of my family were union. My dad being an electrician, my grandfather being an electrician. They were more for the quote unquote the working man. But then as they started skewing, it's a program that wants to take your freedom away. So no, you can't have a gun. No, but it's like, okay, you can't have a gun. You're going to raise your taxes because everybody should have an equal amount. Well, why do I work 40 hours a week and you work 0 hours a week and we can split 50-50? Because then you know what happens there? The people that are working and building the country are going to say, you know what? Wait a minute, Dad, why am I working? Why am I working, lounging around all day and doing this and doing that, and you're getting just as much as I am? Oh, then I'm going to sit on my ass and let somebody else do all the work.
Oh, that is one of the biggest problems, too. I mean, you can't find people for jobs, and then everybody wants to suck off the government and get the easy money, And after they have done that for a little while, the only jobs they'll take are easy jobs. They're not going to do the hard jobs.
Yeah. Now I'm going to go back 20-some years to my first job. My first job, Roy Rogers, fast food restaurant, 1993, 1994. I was making $4.75 an hour, which was slightly over minimum wage. I think minimum wage was $4.50, and I was making $4.75. I was making a quarter over minimum wage. I was rolling in dough.
Whoa. You're aging yourself.
Yeah, I was big time. I was big time. I was big money. Do you know what they are offering down the shore in Jersey, like all the boardwalk towns, Atlantic City, Ocean City, all those places? Do you know what they are offering for people to work this summer to be fry cooks?
$20 an hour.
Fry. How much?
$20 an hour.
$21.50.
Yeah.
To make French
I have
fries
heard that
on the Jersey Shore.
McDonald's is paying well these days. McDonald's was like the lowest tier you could attain when I went to high school. Like, that was the insult. Like, what do you want to do? Flip burgers for the rest of your life? Now, that's a career for kids. Jesus.
It's like, I'm looking at people that are making like $20 an hour, flipping burgers. And then you know what I'm thinking? That's... I mean, I'm not like I'm talking about like I'm big money, but I'm like, and I'm not talking like my job's bad, but my job only pays like 26 something an hour, and that's client relations from a multi-billion-dollar company.
Right.
We're talking about client relations of a Blue Cross Blue Shield, affiliate.
Yeah.
If I lose that gig, let's go back to Roy Rogers. Well, not Roy Rogers per se, but Burger King, Wendy's. Who's going to pay me the most? Will bring back my grill expertise.
Right.
I'm making $45,000 a year at McDonald's.
I got stock options too. Anyway, we got some big fights coming up this weekend. I have one of the best fighter names I have seen in a long time. It's actually a surprisingly decent card otherwise. In Germany. Well, it's actually not really that great, but decent, I guess you could say. There's a fight here. Alexander Lorch at light heavyweight in Germany on Saturday. Alexander Lorch, he is 6-0. He is fighting, this is a great name for an Italian actor, an Italian character in a movie who is the enemy. Okay? The late, great Ray Liotta could play him in a mafia movie if he was still alive. This guy's name is Vito Vendetta. That's his real name. Vito Vendetta, as far as I know. Spelled properly and everything. It's not a wrestler name. Vito Vendetta. 14-8-1 is his record. And it is not the mismatch of the week because that's earlier in the night. At heavyweight, we've got Evgenios Lazaridis. 17-4 against Murat Novalik, who is 1-10. How about that name, Tony? That's a.
I love it. Vito Vendetta, I love it.
That's an Italian wrestler name, right?
Yeah.
Tell that to the WWE. They will create a character overnight.
Yeah, exactly.
Unreal. That's a funny one. That's our Vito fight of the week. Anyway, the one I was thinking about that was the really decent card is actually in Baja, California. And it's not really a lot of people you've ever heard of, but some actually a really decent female fight in the co-main event. But super welterweights in the main event: Jorge Garcia Perez, 23-3, against Oziel Santoyo, who's 13-2 with one draw. Then we got bantamweights: Jackie Nava, 39-4 as a female fighter, fighting Jaceth Noriega, 27-5 with two draws. Rarely ever see a female fight with that many fights between the two women, and it's not for a title. No title on the line. We also have Carlos Norberto Lopez, 17-0-2, fighting Cesar Vaca Espinoza, who's 14-0-1. That's our first. Somebody's always got to go fight of the week, but maybe not the best one. That's a bantamweight fight. And a couple more worth mentioning. Omar Alejandro Aguilar, 23-0, fighting Alfredo Rodolfo Blanco, who's 22-9. We got a four-named Latino without a Jesus. Jorge Luis Martinez Monreal. It's an anomaly here. He's 14-1-1. Fighting Christian Olivo Barreda. Not a Jesus, but a Christian. 19-0-1. This is his record. Good card down there in Mexico. A lot of undefeated fighters on there. We got Angel. Not a Jesus. Angel Alvarado Soto. 6-0 against TBA. Oh, there's a Jesus. You might find a Jesus on that card. Jesus Amparan is fighting TBA as well. He is 18-3 at super featherweight. Jesus is amped. Oh, we even got an Abraham on this card. A Christian, an Angel, a Jesus, and an Abraham. All right, what's going on here? Mexico. What's in the water now?
Let's start the Bible.
Also in Mexico, flyweight fight. 23-1 Kenia Enriquez against Gabriela Sanchez Saavedra, who's 8-4. That's a female fight, actually. Then the co-main event is for the WBC USNBC super welterweight title, even though it's in Mexico. That's kind of funny. Jose Juan Cirillo Terrazas, 11-2, another four-namer against Daniel Vega, who's 16-5-1. That's a good card there. And we've got somebody's always got to go, I believe, too. 11-0 versus 10-0. Welterweight, Daniel Mercado, 11-0. Eduardo Daniel Pena, 10-0-1. There's a Jesus fight. This is the Jesus upset of the week if he wins. Quintana Roo, Mexico. Luis Perez Masso, 4-0 at lightweight, fighting Jesus Mei Chan, who's 1-5. Is that a Chinese Jesus? It's very rare. I'm sure they're out there. Usually it's the Latino Jesuses we deal with on this show. Sounds like the name of a comedy show. Chinese Jesus. Alright, so here we go. The Washington, D.C. fights going on this weekend at Entertainment and Sports Arena. Super lightweights. There's a good boxing name. Greg Outlaw in the main event. Super lightweight. 10-1. Fighting Wilfredo Buelvas, who was 22-15. Anthony Peterson also on this card. I know he's from that area. Super lightweight, 38-1-1, fighting Saul Corral, who is 30-18. Obviously a tune-up fight there, or a just keep an active fight, moneymaker opportunity, one or the other. All right, so we got some big news about this main event too, but the biggest big fight of the whole weekend here, I guess, is Gervonta Davis and Rolando Romero. This is a big, somebody's always got to go fight of the week, because Gervonta is 26-0, Rolando is 14-0. And his name, first name and last name, ends in O. But this is the WBA World Lightweight title, and it's going to be in Brooklyn. It's going to be on Showtime, and it's going to be Floyd Mayweather's last fight with Gervonta, according to him. It's, the guy they call Tank has not really badmouthed Floyd, but he has said that he wants to be his own man, and he just feels like he needs to have the training wheels taken off. and Floyd says a lot of positive things about him. Obviously, can't be happy about it, but I mean, he's not going to beef with him. It's probably bad for business. Whatever their issues are that they're not telling us, they're not going to be a factor going forward. And you got to think a guy like that is really confident that he's going to win. If he loses, geez, that's going to be tough to go into self-management on a loss.
You know, have you guys seen the odds on that fight?
No, yeah, not.
Okay, if you're betting on Tank, it will cost you anywhere odd odds. Boy, how's that for a little ontological thing there, Rich, your grammar professor. I think they were like, you had to put up something like $1,428 to win 100.
Oh my God!
And then for Rolly, then he was plus 530.
Oof.
Now, is Tank considered that good, or is Rolly just? I mean, they're both undefeated. Is Rolly just fought a bunch of stiffs? I mean, again, what's the deal on that?
He's had almost only half
That's shocking.
as many fights.
Like you said, I mean, you're right. Tank's he's good. I mean, and he's knocked out a lot of guys. But his last fight, he was behind, and he saved it. A big knockout. And it's like that's basically like 14 to 1 odds.
Yeah.
I'm shocked. Like you said.
Yeah, I that's what I'm saying. I mean, because, and the trash talk in this, my God, this is going to be entertaining. Robinson, a first-round knockout, wow. This is going to be, because as far as the odds makers are concerned, we shouldn't even be having this fight. It's just a man and an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, we'll see.
It's funny sometimes, like when you look at just like different odds on different fights, and sometimes how fighters come out and do what they say they're going to do, or sometimes they do the exact opposite of what they say they're going to do. Perfect examples: Tyson Fury going into the second fight with Deontay Wilder says, "I'm coming towards him. I'm backing him up." That's a suicide mission. Nobody walked to Deontay Wilder. You crazy? And he did. Same thing when Kelly Pavlik beat Edison Miranda. Edison Miranda was destroying people. Beat a guy from my gym, Willie Gibbs, knocked him out in about a minute on HBO. I mean, it gives so hard he tore his ACL. And Kelly Pavlik said, "I'm coming to him. I'm walking him down." That's like walking into machine gun fire. Are you kidding? That's a suicide mission. And Kelly Pavlik went right to Edison Miranda, backed him up, knocked him out. Then you had the complete opposite, where fighters have something and they do the opposite. Bernard Hopkins fighting Tito Trinidad. He was a big underdog, and he came out and said, "I'm the bigger man here. I'm a natural middleweight. He ain't no natural middleweight. I'm going to rough him up on the inside. I'm going to be using elbows, knees. I'm going to be in his chest. I'm going to wear him down. I'm a natural middleweight. I'm going to rough him up." Then he boxed him. And it was funny. I watched that fight with my trainer. He came over to watch the fight with me, and he goes, "Tony, how do you think this fight's going to happen?" I said, "B-Hop's going to win." He goes, "Why?" I said, and just like B-Hop said, "I'm the bigger man. I'm the stronger man. I'm a natural middleweight. I'm going to rough him up on the inside. I'm going to use elbows. I'm going to use knees. I'm going to fight a back style, Philadelphia ghetto alley fight." And my trainer smiled at me. He goes, "He's going to box him." I said, "Are you out of your mind? No way he's going to box him." Tony, he's going to box him. He's going to box him, and he's going to frustrate him with angles, and he's going to draw him right into his traps. And then, second half of the fight, he's going to sit down on his punches, and he's going to bust him up, because he's going to walk him right into the shots. You're out of your mind. And we watched it together, and every round he looked over and smiled at me. And he nodded his head, and he raised his eyebrows. And to this day, and he never admitted it to me, that I still think he had somebody in Hopkins' camp as a sparring partner. Because to know that game plan, to the T, to the round,
Yeah.
there's no way you know. You could say, I'm a good trainer.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a good trainer, I know that. But unless you
Tom
have
talked
inside
to him.
info,
Tom talked to
you
him.
don't know the game plan.
Tom knows him. Let him borrow the crystal ball.
Exactly.
That's it.
Maybe he did, Tom. If he took Tom's crystal ball and had it, like, crystal clear. But you're right. It's like, sometimes there's a lot of trash talk, and that could be to psych yourself up, Pavlik, Fury, or that could be to psych your opponent up, Tito Trinidad.
Yeah.
And fall them into your traps.
And we mentioned Floyd
Well-
Mayweather. He actually got a big win in his exhibition that was postponed over there in Abu Dhabi. I think it was a knockout, actually. It was pretty good from what I read. Anyway, a couple guys here in the co-main event in Brooklyn that I've seen in action in person. Arislandi Lara out in Vegas. Watched him at the Cosmopolitan. He is 28-3-3. Saw one of his 3 losses. And Gary O'Sullivan, 31-4. Good old Irish guy. Saw him in my native Dorchester. Right around the corner from my old house. In a really basically local armory show. Literally at a National Guard armory. It was actually the place I was actually supposed to have an exhibition fight at the time, but I broke my ankle right before. Coincidence. That's crazy. Crazy coincidence that happened. But anyway, 31-4 is Gary O'Sullivan. Let's see if I can find that fight to tell you who he fought that night. Remember, that's the first time I've ever seen a fight. It was not Gary O'Sullivan, but it was another kid. The night he fought at the Armory, I've never ever seen a kid get disqualified for stalling outside of wrestling. And, for hugging, actually. I don't think it was disqualified. He got penalized repeatedly. Okay. So he's fought a lot in Boston, Gary. Yeah, Dorchester, it had to be years ago. 2010-ish, 4. There it is, Dorchester Armory. Fought Jimmy LeBlanc. Oh, that was the one. That was the guy he fought who was disqualified. See, that's my Rain Man of boxing brain working in reverse. But yeah, the guy was disqualified in round 4 of 8. That was the guy, Jimmy LeBlanc. And I remember thinking, wow, that's a great name for a guy who keeps holding. But at the time, I didn't know that Spike O'Sullivan was, or Gary Spike is his middle nickname. Gary Spike O'Sullivan was going to be that good of a fighter. They're fighting for a title. But, he's quite the journeyman. He's coming off a fighter who was 16-35 with 6 draws. Won a unanimous decision. Before that, he was TKO'd by 34-0 Jamie Munguia in 2020. Back in January of 2020. He's fought a lot of tough. Speaking of David Lemieux, he fought him too and got knocked out in the first round back in 2018. He's beaten some good guys too, just spread out quite a bit. A long career. Anyway, we'll see how this goes. It might be the sleeper fight of the week here. Arislandi, I believe his fight came down to a point taken away for a low blow that did not happen at the Cosmopolitan. That was the controversy. The one that I saw. Let's see, like 2011 when I was out there, somewhere around that area when I was fighting for Titus Zion's case. That's going to be a really good fight. I would guess Arislandi will take it away. But Gary is So no cheap date, as Tom would say. And if we don't have enough other Jesus fights this week with everything going on in Mexico, we have super welterweights. Jesus Alejandro Ramos, 18-0, fighting Luke Santamaria, 13-2-1. And we also have Eduardo Ramirez, 26-2-3 at super featherweight, fighting Luis Melendez, who's 17-1. And then rounding off the big fighters, we've got Luis Arias at super welterweight, 19-3-1. All three in his last 6 of his losses, and one draw as well. So he's only won 2 of his last 6. He's fighting Jimmy Williams, 18-7-2, who has also had quite a few losses in his last 6. He's 4 losses, 2 wins in his last 6. So it's going to be an interesting one. And it's all 6 and 4 rounders after that, or before that, I should say. That's about it for the schedule. Not a lot of US-based stuff going on of high quality this weekend, naturally, Memorial Day weekend. But, I mean, geez, you'd think they ought to have more boxing matches and do stuff that honors veterans this weekend for Memorial Day, but we have less. Because everybody's going to be partying, I guess. They make plans for this weekend to party.
I would make sure that I take some time this weekend, and remember why we have this weekend. And sometimes people get a little upset with me for doing it, but I always post pictures of my 2 grandfathers. I know that we didn't lose them in battle, but they had passed away, and I feel it's just my way of remembering them.
Yes, sir. And I'm sure we've got a lot of our veterans fighting over in the Ukraine too right now, who just went over there and said, you know what? Even retired people, they just said, hey, these people need me, I'm going. That's the advice of our military, some of them. So, gotta give a shout out to them too this weekend. Anyway, I guess that's it for us, unless you guys got something else to add. That's all my stories. That's all my events. Unless you want to talk obscure stuff going on in the MMA world here. Nick Diaz. Guess who he wants to come back to fight? That's the one piece of news I wanted to mention.
Yeah, I read he
Usman.
wants to jump the line. He said he's 38 years old and he doesn't have time to have a lot of fights, so he wants to go right to Usman. And the irony is, the UFC, to their credit, has never really bought into that. Normally you have to earn a title shot, but this may be an exception. The Diaz brothers are just a cult. I mean, they fight, they're going to pack this, the pay-per-view numbers will go crazy. So we'll see. I wouldn't rule it out. I don't think it would happen, but see if he has.
After his last fight, I mean, I'm just not too confident that he's all there. Period. Medically, he could possibly pass the tests and everything like that, but physically, mentally, like, put it all together. Like, is he really going to put in a serious training camp? Like, after that fight, he basically admitted that, like, he got dragged into that thing and pushed into even accepting it. And he's going in against a guy at the tail end of his career who has had quite a few rough stoppages in the last part of his career. And you're going to go against a guy like Usman, who has just been so dominant. Like, forget about it, Nick. Save your brain cells. Stay at home. I love how everybody rallies to the Diaz brothers just because they like how they, just come to fight. But especially Nick, he just has a very tough to win style. Like, for what people do now in the fight game, he still fights like he used to fight, and this whole slap thing and, putting all these punches together. Like, you can throw a million punches like that, you're never going to knock anybody out. Unless they're like day one training. They might take a lot of punches, but I mean, they're just going to laugh them off. So, I mean, unless you really step up your game somehow, start really juicing and eating those Myoplex bowls, I don't think so. I don't think he's going to have a chance. And I don't think they should make that fight. I love the fans want it, and that they think Nick Diaz can do it. That's how much of a legend he is. But I don't want to say he's not that good. He was, at one point, that good, where he would have been a match for Kamaru if they were both in their primes. But this is not fantasy fights. This is real life. So I don't want to see that fight. I would put that as an equivalent, okay, if we put prime Francis Ngannou against Chuck Liddell right now. That's how it would go. That's just my 2 cents. I don't believe in the Nick Diaz legend continuing. I like what he did as a fighter when he was in his prime. He was great, but I just he's really one of those guys. His time has passed. It's not a situation where he should be coming back. Because, I mean, it's not just the fight damage you got to think about with this guy. I mean, if even half of the stuff that's been put out about his nightlife is true, you got to consider all the drug use, the alcohol.
Well, how long has it been since he's won a fight?
Yeah.
Do you know?
How long?
Yeah, how long? I mean, this could be a decade.
Yeah. He's teasing. He's teasing.
I'm just trying to remember.
That's the headline on SureDog. He's teasing a return before the end of the year and wants to call out Kamaru Usman. I don't doubt that he's ready. Could be ready for a fight by the end of the year, but not against Kamaru Usman. Give him a made-up title or something. Make him fight somebody else. They need to come up with a loser leaves town title or something of that equivalent for some of these old veterans. Literally, the UFC cuts people randomly. If they lose, they'll just third loss in a row, they'll just cut you. And then somebody else who's lost 3 fights in a row may have a better name recognition. They'll get kept. So they do it by all kinds of arbitrary reasons why they cut people. Why not make it official and be like, all right, whoever loses this fight is getting cut, and you're going to get a belt if you don't get cut. I think that would be interesting. I don't know. Might not be popular, but it'd be interesting. You're literally fighting for your future, A lot of people kind of go in sort of knowing that, but imagine actually knowing that. You either win or you're gone. Fired. Call it the Donald Trump belt. He'll come in and say you're fired. We'll see. Nate Diaz as well. I mean, just got such a cult following. But anyway. So I think it's just about risk reward with Nick. He's basically saying, if I'm going to go out there and fight, I might as well go for the championship. I don't think the UFC's going to let that happen. If they do, somebody should be arrested. That's my thought. Anyway. He says, it's a bigger fight if you just skip all the mess. I don't want to go in there and get my ass whooped by one of those young guys anyway. And it's not that I won't win. It's just that I'm not motivated to fight somebody that's, I want to fight for the title. I'm 38 years old. Anyway. Yeah. Crazy. Don't think it's going to happen. I could think of a lot of guys, though. How about the winner of Joe Lozon and Cowboy Cerrone? Throw Nick in with that. I don't know what weight he's at nowadays. But anyway, I guess that's it for us. Boy, 10:30 already.
Right. Yeah.
So we got talking politics. 3 hours later.
I know.
You guys didn't even get to have your Philly boxer conversation. Did you?
I did get some good. Hey, before we end, those fundraisers I did last week were fantastic. Tom, I'll have to send you the one thing I wrote after I did them. The one we did, they were both hot. That outfit is not the coolest thing to wear, and it's kind of heavy. And people were like, I was joking around, like, I think I'm getting really lightheaded. People, oh my God, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Listen, I used to train in the boxing gym. Like today, we turned the heat up. I'd wear sweatsuits. Yeah, I'm fine. But it was perfect that the day was so hot because one of my Lock Haven boxing teammates was there, and he's the guy that locked me in the sauna in 1997 because I lost 14 pounds. I had to lose 15. And I said, it is perfect that you are here today on the hottest day of the year that we could take a photo because it's just. But then I did the other fundraiser for the children who have lost parents to cancer, and they were, touting they were going to have a Philly legend there. I got excited. I found out it was me. I wasn't so excited. Next Wednesday, I'm going to the game. It's a Top Gun night,
Nice.
And they're doing a Miles Teller bobblehead, and Miles Teller will be there. And I'm going to see if I can arrange a meet and greet with him because he played Vinny Paz in Bleed for this. So I'd love to get a photo with him and send it to Vinny. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I got a shout out to Vinny too. See if we can get him back on the show. Vinny, round 2. He said, first interview, we got to do round 2, the R-rated version.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll never forget the first time I met Vinny too at a local event around Massachusetts, and he came in like dressed to the nines, like beautiful girlfriend at his side, his sunglasses and everything, big trench coat, luxury trench coat. I mean, and then you go for the handshake, and it's like smooth as butter. That guy, like he's been your friend your entire life, and you're just saying hi to your old friend. That's the kind of guy he is. Funny. And then the best memory ever of Vinny had to have been after the Rocky Marciano statue dedication when we were just like chilling with him, and all the VIPs were across the street at that like exclusive party that they had for a minute, like an hour after the event. And we're all sitting over there just shooting the shit about where we should go next to party. That's what he told us about the green belts. I think you got him talking about boxing. He was talking about the green belt, the WBC belt. That's the one he always wanted. Good times. But anyway, it's a lot of content for tonight. We've got to slow down. Save some for next week.
Okay.
All right. Awesome job.
All right, guys. Enjoy the fight.
Yes, sir.